I hope you're doing well. Today we are talking about the last book in the Last Hour series, Chain of Thorns. Guys. We waited 2 years for this book. 2 years. I remember when Chain of Iron came out and I finished it. And I thought, oh my goodness, how am I gonna wait? And then they said the book was gonna be released in March of 2022. And then it was December 2022. And then it got moved to January 2023. And so here we are, guys. Credit, and I'm not gonna lie. You know that, I'm not sure if you do, but you know in the first Spider-Man movie post-credits where Captain America comes out and goes, disappointment. This is kind of how I felt. Not gonna lie. But we're gonna talk about all that today. We're gonna talk about the good, the bad, the greatness. Let's get started. Okay, if I'm being completely honest, I love the characters. Of all the Shadowhunter books, besides like Will, Tessa, and Jem, I probably love the characters a lot. And I've said this in my other videos before, when it came to the perspectives, sometimes with Cassandra Clare's book, especially in like the Dark Artifices or the Mortal Instruments series, I would like a few of the characters, and then whenever I had to read the perspective of the other characters that I didn't really care for as much, I tend to have lost interest in the book. But with that being said, I actually liked all the characters in this book. I wasn't burdened a lot by having to switch perspectives, and so I love the characters this much. I think they were very well fleshed out. Like, I really think they were probably one of her more stronger set of characters. So if it wasn't for the characters, I don't think I necessarily would be able to finish the book. And we'll kind of talk more about that too. Like, I loved Chain of Gold. Like, Chain of Gold, guys, when it came out, I loved it. I was completely in love with it. And then Chain of Iron came out, and Chain of Iron I would give a 4 out of 5. So I was like, it was good. I was able to read it, but there were times where I just felt like it was dragging a little, but never to the point where I'm like, I just can't read it. Chain of Thorns took me 4 months to read. Now, some of that is not the author's fault. Some of that is anymore. I just cannot finish a book that fast. But a lot of it was the useless drama that just dragged out, like, all throughout the book. Like, it started off good. I loved it. Like, the first like 100, 200 pages I loved. And then when we started getting into the drama of the miscommunication, I just kind of completely lost interest. Like, there were so many parts of this book I much would rather have seen, but there was so much time taken up writing about this miscommunication, useless drama, that I just kind of started to lose it. I think part of it with this book is compared to Infernal Devices. In the Infernal Devices, there were miscommunications, but it made sense. Okay, so if you haven't read the Infernal Devices, I'm going to be spoiling a little bit, so you might want to mute it for 30 seconds though. So like in the Infernal Devices, Will had that curse, and so there was a purpose between the miscommunication, so you're like, okay, this makes sense. But when we get to Chain of Thorns, there wasn't much purpose to it. It was just, okay, it's just there. And I don't know, I think it just kind of started to drag on, especially the length of this book too. It's not like, okay, you know what, we had like a little section of miscommunication and then we wrapped up, because I feel like that should happen more in the second book than the third book. Because third book to me, I think should be more plot driven than relationship driven, because this is where we're tying up loose ends. And I felt like because the miscommunication took up so much space that when we got to the plot of Belial, it was, oh, and here he is again, and now we're gonna go along with this. Because I felt actually he was probably the strongest villain she's ever written, at least for me personally. I felt that. I loved his villain, I think, the most. There was such strong storylines because he affected each and every character in a different way, and then it was kind of put in the background and then come to light near the end, and I just felt like it was so rushed. And I'm going to talk more about the ending soon. But yeah, the miscommunication, I just felt just didn't really have too much purpose in it, and it just kind of dragged on and on and on. And plus, I hate to say it, but these people were like really great friends. Why are you miscommunicating? Like, I can see if y'all just met each other, but come on. But one thing I did like about the series that kind of dragged me down in Queen of Air and Darkness and Lord of Shadows is I liked that how even though we had a vast set of characters, they were grouped together, you still got each an individual of their plot line, but not so much where every single person had their own perspective. Because that's kind of what dragged me down in the other books too, is like when every person just had their own perspective. Where that's, I think, grouping them together into sets and everyone had their own view, but it wasn't like everyone had their own storyline, and I really appreciated that. So like I said, let's talk a little about the ending, because that's really kind of what I wasn't sure if I was even gonna film a video on this till I got to the end. Guys, I'm not gonna lie, that we could have cut out the middle and focused more on the end. I felt like it ended way too nicely. I kid you not, Cordelia literally kills Belial and ends her paladin ship, let's call it, with Lilith, and then the end. The credits come up and we get an epilogue that I'm pretty sure no one really asked for. And I think that's why it made me kind of not like it is normally when you finish a book, at least in the Shadowhunter series, there is some closure to it. Like in Clockwork Princess, after they defeated the villain, there was at least a scene. I'm not even talking about the epilogue, I'm just talking about the final chapters of the book. There was at least a scene where you kind of found out how everything worked out at the end. Kind of same with Queen of Air and Darkness, the Mortal Instruments series, and this, it kind of just ended and that was it. And I think this is where the problem was. It's first of all, we worked through 3 books. We worked to 3 books to see how this plot was going to pan out, and then that was it. We completed our purpose and now it's done with. And this is where I think the weakest part was. Will, Tessa, and any of the parents were nowhere in this book. And this is what kind of irritated me, and I get it. It was a book about their kids, so obviously they're not going to have perspective, and that is okay. But in the other books where the parents were not involved and kind of in the background, it made sense because 1, we either didn't really know the parents, 2, the parents just really were not that great of parents, or 3, there were no parents. So it made sense. But in this book, because the way Will and Tessa parent their children, the way and Gabriel and Cecily parent their children, basically how any of the characters in the Clockwork series were, I felt like when we removed them, it was just so out of character. And so when the book ended, I was expecting we would at least see a scene of Will and Tessa like seeing their children again. And there wasn't. And the same with, we'll talk more about this, but same with a particular death. Why did we not see that? In all the other books, whenever someone dies, we get a funeral scene and nothing like that. And that's where I come back to say I wish the middle part was cut out, focus more on the ending, because in the ending is probably when the most stuff happened, but it happened so quick, it happened so fast that we really don't get much detail about it. And I started to think like, is this really what that book was even about? Because it happened so quick, and I really think we could have really drawn on it more. Okay, let's talk about something. In Clockwork Princess, we have this thing, this timeline. Now, I remember when 15-year-old me read about this timeline, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is beautiful. And when I found out the author was writing a book based off these kids, I thought, oh my goodness, this is wonderful. But here's the thing. I hated the explanation for the timeline. I get the author kind of wrote herself into a box and had to somehow get out of the box. I get that. I am not criticizing that. I'm okay if the timeline is not 100% correct. But what I didn't like was the explanation to why it wasn't correct, that this character was kind of just making like random theories and plots. Didn't even know if these people were dead or alive. But here's the thing what I don't understand. Here it says the dates, like when the character was born. Now, a few of them you could probably say, yeah, okay, I get it. They might be wrong. Like probably saying the Will, Tessa's date of birth could be wrong. You're like, okay, that makes sense. But here's the thing. If this book is taking place in the early 1900s, wouldn't we have at least, first of all, some understanding of when these people might have been born? Plus, how would this character even know the name of the future Shadowhunters? How would they know that? I can get the whole, okay, she was just guessing who would end up first. But first off, it's not even your family. Why do you care? That's my, why are you making a timeline about some other people's families? Let's make because they were the central Shadowhunters, like the main people. I don't know. Also, I was rooting for Grace and Christopher so much, and when it didn't happen, I was like, what? When Christopher died, I was shocked. Okay, I was not expecting that to be the death, but I thought, okay, you know what? Maybe he's gonna come back to life. Like, you know, Lucy's gonna command him to come back to life again or something like that. And then I got to the end and I'm like, nope, he's dead. Cool. And then I hate how the ending was more telling the show. And this comes back to the whole, like, let's cut out the middle portion and focus more on the ending. So at the end, especially in the epilogue, let's say, even in the epilogue, I wish there was more showing than telling, because, okay, the characters are each bearing something of their own lives. Great. That's very metaphorical, symbolic, great. But then they're like going on and be like, and then we did this, and then we did this, and then this happened, then this happened. And I wanted to see that. And maybe that's just me, but I wanted to see that. And then I wanted to see Will and Tessa's like expression, like when James told them about the bracelet. I wanted to see how James and Tessa reacted when they finally got out of Idris and was able to come to London to help defeat Belial. I wanted to see James and Tessa's reaction for everything, and I don't know, maybe it's because I just really like the characters. I don't think because they are characters we've read before, I think people would not have been upset or argued that had kind of a little bigger role than in Parents and Shadowhunter books in the past. Because when Will and Tessa go to Idris, I get why the author removed them, but I feel like at the same time that this was just a repeat of Chain of Iron. And here's the thing though too. First of all, London is in a set of chaos. You know Belial is coming, and you know he's coming for your children. children. Why do you not take your children with you? I get it. It's the whole, well, the institute is safe. But still, if you were really concerned parents, wouldn't you take your children with you? Also, why couldn't the mortal sword come to London? And here's the thing too, why I feel like this is where it's cut out the middle drama about the communication and add this, because I think it'd be actually really plot worthy to actually see Tessa and Will under trial of the mortal sword, even though we knew how that was going to work out and what was going to happen. I think it would at least though gone with the plot somewhat. Again, I hate how we were just like hearing about it than actually seeing it. I mean, I don't even care if we took a little intermission from this book and just went to that scene and saw, like, you know, read a few pages about it and then we cut back. That'd be great with me too. And that's why when the Shadow Hunters go through the portal to Idris, because Belial's letting them evacuate, he's such a very considerate demon, am I right? To let them evacuate, we find out later that, oh, Will and Tessa cry, but why didn't we get like a perspective from Charles or something? Like, I get it, he's not the main person of the book, he's not someone we get a perspective of, but at least why don't we, or just even cut to Will and Tessa's perspective, see how people are reacting, see how the families react to Christopher's death, because like I said, Christopher died and we don't even see anyone mourn. Like, Thomas is really, I feel like, the only one that actually showed emotion for it, because then we're at the picnic and life is good and then it ends and it's like, what? Okay, like, first off, your friend died and like people's nephew died, kid died, like, you know, and no one actually really mourns it. When a character died in Lord of Shadows, we got a funeral. When someone died at the end of Clockwork Princess, it tore my heart out. And then I feel like this one was like, done. Which actually, that's what really kind of surprised me, because Cassandra Clare said that this book was going to end with the highest stakes, that it was going to end worse than anything we've ever read. And I thought, I was getting ready, I was getting prepared, because I thought, oh my goodness, my heart is gonna hurt, but I'm ready for it. And then it just didn't happen. I did read on her Tumblr once, she said it wasn't necessarily like an original ending, it wasn't like how she originally was gonna plan, but it was an idea she was thinking of. And I'm kind of glad she didn't go with this idea, because I feel like it'd be kind of a repeat of Clockwork Princess. Is that James, the final epilogue would be James on his deathbed thinking about all his friends who had died and how he can't wait to see them again. And I'm kind of glad it didn't go that far, because I mean, I don't want them all to die, but I thought we were gonna have higher stakes than we did, because it just ended too nicely, too quickly, and then it was over. You know, I kind of already said this once before, but I kind of want to say, normally when I finish a book series, even if I like it, like for example, when I finished Clockwork Princess, when I finished the Mortal Instrument series, when I finished any other series, yeah, sure, I'm like, oh darn, it's the last book, I wish there was more, but I want more because I love the story, not because I felt it was unfinished. And that's kind of how I felt with this book. I felt like this book, there was just not any closure at the end, because like I said, the ending abruptly happened, and then we had this epilogue, and then boom, done. And I felt like there was no closure. I felt like that we needed to hear more. So like I said, when I felt like I could read another book, it's not because it was, oh, because it was just so good, I want more. It was, it felt very unfinished to me. And when I say that, I'm not saying the book itself was unfinished, I'm just saying the storyline itself, I felt like I'm expecting another book now. And I don't know, I just felt like there was no closure, and I wanted more. So let's talk about the love triangle of this book. Guys, I promise you, we are gonna get to the more happier, like, I love this part of the book. But now I just gotta rant, okay? Well, we just gotta rant. The love triangle between James, Cordelia, and Matthew. Is it really a love triangle? That is my question. Is this really a love triangle? Because, okay, so when we had the Clockwork series and we had Jem, Will, and Tessa, that was a great love triangle. I love that love triangle. I cannot argue against that love triangle. But with this book, I don't know, maybe it's because we did have the timeline, or maybe because it was just very abrupt. Like, it wasn't like at the beginning of the first book, Matthew and James were both fighting for Cordelia or something like that. Matthew kind of just like slid in there at the end of Chain of Iron. I don't know, was the author wanting me to root for them a little bit, or sit there and wonder who is she gonna end up with? Because you knew the bracelet was gonna end. You knew that was gonna happen. And based off of the timeline, you knew she was gonna end up with James one way or another. So just, I felt like the love triangle was I could see James can't like Cordelia because of the bracelet. Cordelia likes James. I could see though Matthew liking Cordelia, but kind of keeping it to himself. And I think this would fit his character if he kept it to himself because he didn't believe he deserved Cordelia, or he thought she would never love him. Keeping it to himself, but then coming to a realization, I don't know, somewhere else down the line, that no, she was not for him. I don't know, something like that. Because I felt like we just dragged Matthew through the dirt and nothing came of it. I don't know, I just, a little irritated. There was a whole miscommunication, especially with James and the bracelet. Let's talk about James and the bracelet. James and the bracelet. Here is the thing. First of all, why didn't he tell his parents sooner? I do not know. The whole thing of, oh, I don't want them to pity me Really? Okay. I get the whole not wanting to break bad news to your loved ones because you don't want them to feel bad and things like that. I get that. I don't know. I just felt like the miscommunication was very out of line. It's just like, why? Why would you think they pitied you? Okay, I guess I could say, but it just irritated. Plus, for me, the ship did not sail of James and Cordelia. Like I said, we knew James and Cordelia ended up with each other, and I thought Chain of Gold, okay, that was a great introduction to their characters together. But then Chain of Iron, because of the bracelet and James not being really able to fully love Cordelia, I get that. So then the bracelet finally broke, and in Chain of Thorns, they finally get together. I just felt like there was nothing there. Like, I don't know. The book ended where really by the end of it, I really didn't care whether or not they were going to get together because there was nothing, I guess there was nothing in there that made me root for them because there was so much miscommunication. And maybe if we didn't have the miscommunication and we had more time of them at least building up a friendship, we kind of had that in Chain of Iron, but then it disappeared in Chain of Thorns. I feel like if we were able to at least just build upon what we had in Chain of Thorns, that by the end of it, when they end up together, you're like, yes. Because I don't know, I just felt like it was too sudden. Like James was like, I love Cordelia and all this other stuff. And then Cordelia's like, I don't know if James liked me and all this other things. And I just felt like by the time they finally did come together, I felt too instant love for me, to be honest. It did. And that's why I also kind of hate how the paladin problem was just so easily solved. Like we get to the end, Lilith appears, and then Cordelia's like, no, I can't be your paladin anymore and blah blah. And I felt like there should have been more to it because that was also a huge storyline. This is also, why didn't we ever tell an adult? Maybe this is just me wishful thinking, like I said, because I loved Will and Tessa and all the other characters, but I just felt like the adults should have been more into it. Like I would love to see Will and Tessa fighting alongside their children in the final battle. I would love to see it when they're talking about, oh, they were breaking open the church door. I would love to see that. And then it just ended. And like I said, I felt by the time the book ended, I felt like there should have been more. I felt like more things should have been expressed, and that just is not what happened. And like I said, I guess biggest me with the whole miscommunication, not talking, and I don't know, just some worthless drama that really had nothing to do with the plot either in the middle of the book. I don't know. Like this book was 800 pages long, and probably this much of it was just random drama. Also, I do wonder, do Jesse and Lucy end up here? Like I think they do. I really do think they do, but the timeline has told me I shouldn't trust it, so who knows? But I do. I think Jesse and Lucy do end up actually together and that they are the start of the Blackthorn line. I do believe that because Julian has blue-green eyes. I might be like, Lucy has blue eyes and Jesse has green eyes, so you know, could work like that. And that's the thing too. I guess we should also go into the timeline a little more. So are we supposed to assume that the Lightwood line actually came from Alexander? Which I guess that would kind of make sense, but that means that Alexander's line had to start marrying young and having kids young in order to reach the dates of the current series. I don't know, like I said, I felt like there was a way we could still wrote into the timeline to make it say, okay, the timeline is still correct, but maybe there's just details we didn't know that changed. You know, like as a reader, like maybe this was a timeline that was written years down the line where who didn't know the people, and so maybe some of it was just guessing. And I feel like if that was the explanation, saying, oh, we could cut to maybe Jem's perspective and be like, oh, years later down the line, someone would try to put down the shadow hunters who live, and little do they know how much they got right or wrong. Like something like that, where it's like, okay, it's someone future. Because I feel like I said, when the resolve was it was someone what the book's present was writing it, didn't make a lot of sense. Okay, let's talk about the things I like now, because I felt like I just ranted to you guys. I love the characters. I do. I loved the characters. There really was not a character where I got to, I was like, oh, I have to read about this character. I love the characters. I'm really hoping she will actually write more like short stories about them. And I was like, I feel like, remember Immortal Instruments when we got a second part? I really kind of wish this could happen for this book. And like I said, I know this ain't gonna ever happen. I'm just wishful thinking here. I think it'd be great if we may not have a whole other series, but just another book. Okay, what were their lives after this? Maybe they do go on a little mini mission together. I don't know. Like I said, this was the last time we read about Will and Tessa together, and I really would have liked to have seen more of it. But I love the characters. I love the world. Like I said, I felt like for me, the book, I felt I was able to get in more than like the other Shadowhunter books. Like, don't get me wrong, I loved all the other Shadowhunter books, but this, I felt like I connected well with it. I loved it. I just liked the characters. They were well written. I thought the world was well written. I kind of wish James and Lucy's powers had more of a shining spotlight. Like, we had James' powers in Chain of Gold all the time. We had more Lucy's powers in Chain of Iron. And then kind of in Chain of Thorns, it all disappears a little, but we still have Lucy's powers, but then they go away because of Belial, which is interesting. So does it mean that Belial gave them the powers? I guess my question is, did James and Lucy get the powers because they are descendants of Belial? Or did they get the powers because Belial gave them to them and he was going to try to use their powers in order to further his cause in the future? Because I feel like this brings up kind of a lot of questions about Tessa and her power, can Tessa still shapeshift? Like, can she still do that? And if it is because Belial gave her the powers, then why did she have that power to begin with? I feel like I am talking, like, going way over this and thinking way too much about this, which I am. But that's just, like, what's kind of interesting. If James and Lucy had those powers as a result of being the grandchild of a higher demon, when they keep those powers, that tells me Belial gave them the powers. Because I did love this book. I love the creation of fire messages. I thought that was fun, and I kind of liked how Grace's character was redeemed at the end. I loved how she's the one that kind of helped invent the fire messages. I wouldn't mind to find out what more happened to her character afterwards, because like I said, according to the timeline, she was supposed to end up with Christopher and be part of the Lightwood line, but now we find out that's not true. So I'm wondering what happened to her character, because all the other characters, I think we could kind of guess. Like, we know James and Cordelia, yes, they go down the Harrowdown line. We don't really know where Emma's character is, but we could probably take some guess into, I'm thinking Emma, if we are taken to a true, like, blood timeline, I think Emma's probably the descendant of Alistair's and Cordelia's younger brother. Makes sense. We can probably assume Alexander was the Lightwood line, and maybe the twins Charlotte is gonna have is probably one of them would be the Fairchild line. What happened to Grace? I want to know what happened to Grace. We hear, I think, the name Cartwright in the Mortal Instruments series. Is this a descendant of Grace? I am sad to see those these characters go. I really want to read more about these characters because I love these characters so much. I am interested to see how the Wicked Powers is gonna play out. I'm wondering, like, we kind of already know who the Wicked Powers are gonna be, who's gonna be the main characters of Wicked Powers, but I wonder if there's gonna be some element where all past Shadowhunters come. This is just like my random theory. But anyways, guys, that was my book talk. Like I said, I know I ranted so much about it and I apologize. I really did like the book, but that was just things that really did stand out to me. I really did like the series. I would have to say Chain of Gold was my favorite in the series, but I love the books. I love the characters. I thought they were so well written. I waited 7 years for this series. I mean, I guess I'm sad to see this generation go. Like, when I finished this book, I felt kind of like a little depressed. It's an end of an era. When this series was announced, I was overjoyed. And then now we read them, and now it's just like, you know what? It's the end of an era. I'm a little sad. I'm hoping this isn't the last we'll hear of these characters. But anyways, guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you next video. Bye!